Okay, thank you for staying tuned. And if you really enjoy this conversation, please definitely subscribe and click notifications so that we can share more updates. I wrote some notes because I was actually really intrigued. I haven't done the research on the numbers in quite a while, and there is a Pew Research report that has come out, and so the article that I read referenced it. And so I wanted to kind of go over it. I do have some notes here because I tend to get a bit scattered, and so I wanted to share some things during this brief video. I have been a outside of the home mom. I have been a married mom. I have been a divorced mom and single mom. And I have also been a stay-at-home, work-at-home mom. And while I was single, and I also homeschool my children, at least my younger set of children. And then finally now I have transitioned from being a stay-at-home, work-from-home, single divorced mom to a stay-at-home homeschooling mom who no longer works. I am recently remarried and enjoying the blended family life. And so that's somewhat of a history of where I'm coming from that I really wanted to share some insights to, again, the young ladies who are interested in joining the community of stay-at-home moms. And, a lot of times there is a lot of pressure from society that states that a woman is being lazy, that she's not being a contributor to society if she is a stay-at-home mom. And there is a bit of you know, a way of putting women down for wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, as if that job is not one of the most important jobs in the universe as far as I'm concerned. And that's not to say that being a father isn't absolutely critical and necessary, because it absolutely 100% is. And this conversation is also, not to denigrate the women who have to work by choice or who enjoy working. So, absolutely no shade on that, but I really am focusing on the stay-at-home moms for this particular conversation. And so, to say that we're lazy or that we're not contributing or that we're not using our education, nowadays more and more of stay-at-home moms are degreed women. They were perhaps once career women and made the choice for the betterment of their family and for their children, particularly during the children's younger ages, to focus on the home. And I wanted to address that, those two commentaries and the social pressures that you may find if you are in a place where perhaps you're engaged, you're ready to start a new life, maybe you're newly married and you're considering children, and you're tossing around this idea with your husband. And the issue of that you're being lazy, I think that it's quite unfortunate that nowadays so many parts of society truly look down on the motherhood role. In other words, they devalue it as if it is not as important as any other job in life. But we as a society are social beings, and we all end up having to deal with the fallout of our socialization from home, from individuals' home cultures and home values that they bring out of the home into the world, into the schools, into the daycares, into the workplace, on the bus, in cars, in restaurants. Pretty much of our upbringing comes from our home environment. And to say that to be a mother who is focused on instilling your family values is something that is not as great of a value as going out and working a day job is really an insult to the women who work very hard at parenting and being available for their children. And as a woman who has done both, or really all three, meaning working outside of the home, working in the home, and then being in the home but not working the day job, I really feel like I have a broader perspective in terms of the way in which I felt as a woman. That's not to say that all women feel this way, but I know that I particularly felt very stressed out. I felt that there wasn't enough time in the day to do all of the things that I needed to do. I felt pulled and torn between taking time to really be able to mindfully and be presently emotionally available for my children at the end of a long work day, and perhaps running errands after picking them up from daycare and school, doing things that I didn't have time to do over the weekend, and then coming home later in the evening, and having to cook dinner, clean up after them, help them with their homework. There really was not a lot of time for me to really sit down and look at them as growing, beautiful, wonderful beings and individuals who might need input and might need insight about the things that they are encountering in their days at daycare or at a school, for instance, things that they've not yet encountered in their life. And when you have children in a social environment in terms of a daycare or a school, typically they are learning from their peers. For the most part. And then if they're on their phones 24/7, they are definitely learning from social media, some things we may not want them learning, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube. The music that's out there isn't as positive as we might want it to be for our children. So education is coming from everywhere. And unless you're not breathing, we are always learning. We are always in an environment of receiving information that's coming at us. And in this day and age, there's so much information coming at our children, and it's very difficult to know exactly what they're consuming 24/7 when they're not around us, or whether or not that what they're consuming matches with our home values. And one of the things I experienced when my children, my older set of children were in public school and whatnot, I noticed that I had to spend a lot of time undoing what they learned at school every day. In other words, if it was in opposition to my family values, if they come home with a new attitude or, a new way of talking or some new slang word that, I didn't appreciate or agree with, I'd have to spend so much time undoing and reminding them of the values in our home. And to me, that was very exhausting. And on top of just my own general levels of exhaustion of being out of my home, ripping and running, dealing with rush hour, dealing with road rage people, dealing with the energies in the work environment that were not necessarily easy. And it just felt as if I was an onlooker to my children's childhood, as if I just couldn't get a grasp fully in the way in which I wanted. And of course, again, that's not to say that this is every woman's experience, but I certainly wanted more of an input in my children's life. And I felt like it was getting away from me, that time was passing, and not to mention if I were to add extracurricular activities to their day, then it spilled into the weekends, and then the weekends you think, okay, we're going to catch up on the weekend. And then now you're doing more extracurricular. You might be running errands that you just did not have time to run during the week. And you rarely ever get a rest as a mother. And even when I was working inside of the home, it still was a job. I had to clock in and clock out. Yes, I was able to homeschool them, but I still had that push and pull of having to answer to someone else during a certain period of time in the day. So yes, I got to see them more. Yes, it felt like more quality time. I removed the stress of being out of the home, dealing with energy and people maybe I didn't feel like dealing with, not dealing with rush hour traffic, not dealing with the emotional drain of the push and pull of them taking on social behaviors that are not in keeping with our family values. So I didn't have that. So yes, it was a big relief and a vast difference from when I was working outside of the home, but I was still working for someone else. And so now when I'm able to spend time in the home and not have to work for someone else, that required an entire shift of energies for me because, that's where many of the skills, the homemaking skills, really come into play, because sometimes you could almost feel as if like, what just happened? Like I have the whole day. What do I do? And, you might go through that transition for a day. It may take you a week until you get into the groove and you get yourself, scheduled out and time management, especially with homeschooling still. So it's not as if you're just home by yourself while the kids are somewhere else and you're able to just kind of go through, you know, your day uninterrupted, I'm still with my children basically 24/7. And so, yes, I have to schedule my time in. I have to schedule time for working out. I get up very early, about 5 a.m. I work out. My husband and I have scheduled time to study marriage so that we can maintain a very close connection and lines of communication together. Then I have to practice, you know, things that I like to practice just while I'm alone before I get them up, and after he's gone off to work, I cook him breakfast in the morning, I make his lunches, and if the older children, you know, from my blended family, my new children, if they are here during those days, I also make their breakfast and their lunch. And so then we move on with the day, which is scheduling out what do we do in what days, when do we do laundry, when do we do chores, when do I follow up with phone calls, when do I take care of just maintenance of the house, the cleaning, preparing for dinner, you know, the grocery shopping, keeping account of budget, finances, just in terms of making sure that I'm on top of the things that I'm handling. And it is quite a bit. On top of all of that is managing their homeschooling, managing issues they may have, making sure they're on task, and back and forth to the grocery store, what have you. Then I do have my own coaching business, and so I am handling clients and emails and making sure that I don't allow that to become another full-time job for me. I do it because I love to do it, and I love my clients and I love my classes. I record classes to be viewed at a later time for various packages that I offer. So I have a very full life. We don't have cable in our home. We utilize Netflix and various other Amazon Prime. And so we eliminated that bill. And so I'm not sitting home watching Jerry Springer's eating chips. I'm actually doing a weight loss challenge. And so oftentimes I'll wear a weighted vest around. I go out with my neighborhood lady friends at 5:30 a.m. 4 days a week. And well, it's going to be 4. It was 3. And I've gone from huffing and puffing to power walking to now jogging, and it's nearly 3 miles a day. And then we, you know, wind down. You know, at the end of the day, I may try to work out again by taking a walk with my husband because he really enjoys that, and that's more time togetherness for us. So it is literally a full day that we have, and if you're not able to manage your time, manage yourself, as well as keep up with your self-care, it can become very difficult. And so what was really interesting about this article, before I just go on and on about my day, it stated that in 1967, 49% of American women were stay-at-home wives/moms. By 1999, that had gone down to 6%. So it went from 49% in 1967 to a little over 30 years later, it was only 6%. Fortunately, we are seeing a rise in those numbers because in the latest studies, it is showing that women now in America are about 29% stay at home. So it went from 49 down to 6, and now it's up to about 29%. And a great deal of these women are previous career women who have degrees or multiple degrees, and they've made a choice to focus on their children's early education. Studies have shown that, you know, women who are able to focus more on their children are seeing a greater sense of well-being in their children, particularly in their toddlers, but definitely all the way up into high school. They are reports where it's showing that children are more adjusted and less aggressive and more emotionally balanced, especially the younger toddler age up through 5 and 6 years old, who had been dealing or are dealing with the pressures and the stress of daycares. You know, they're less aggressive, they're less easily excitable when they're able to stay at home. And they are finding also that, you know, another pro versus a con of, you know, being a stay-at-home mom is that their education capacity increases many times for those who are stay-at-home moms, whether they are children of stay-at-home moms who still send them off to school, or whether they are children of stay-at-home moms who homeschool. There's an even greater increase in terms of educational productivity for homeschoolers on average versus public schools, and there's plenty of reports and studies on that. That's not at all to say that public school children aren't excelling and some of them aren't having a great experience, but overall, the educational achievements of children who are homeschooled are statistically much higher in terms of the testing on standardized tests. And so that's really been one of the reasons why I wanted to homeschool my children, is because I wanted to take a closer look at their education, at what they are learning, and ensure that their education includes the things that are really, really important to me and doesn't have a lot of the things that I find are divisive or just not in keeping with our family standards, and yet they will still pass state standardized tests, hopefully with flying colors. Most homeschoolers now are going on to college. And so it's just been a really wonderful experience to see the reports coming out of studying families who have been homeschooling for over a decade or more, and the results from their educational endeavors. There's also an increase in the parent and child relationship. That's another pro for being a stay-at-home mom. I have found also that because I am with my younger set 24/7, I am having to really focus in on my sense of presence, my sense of availability. Our relationship is much closer. I'm able to just talk with them about their likes and dislikes. I'm able to pay more attention to the things that interest them, the YouTube channels that they're watching, the things that I just did not have time when I was working, and I was just really becoming more and more physically and mentally exhausted and drained. I just didn't have it to follow up on every single thing with my older children, and so I'm noticing a difference in being able to compare me and my life and my relationship with my children when I was working as opposed to with my children when I am not working. And it's a huge difference for me personally, and so that's something that I deeply value. Another really, really important aspect that's a positive aspect is, again, the promulgation of your family values. When there's not a huge interruption in the day in terms of influences that are not well matched to your family, it is really, really, really exciting to be able to see those values that we have within our family, and it being reinforced by my husband when he comes home, asking them questions and seeing how they're doing, and just being able to walk them through some of the day-to-day things that happen to them, and looking at their mindset and their ability to intellectually walk themselves through a cause and effect. And so that's really, really positive for me. But some cons that were mentioned was that many stay-at-home moms consider going back to work, and that's a stress for them. Meaning, in other words, their desire to get back into the workforce feels like a stressor for them. And so what I personally just have to say with that, say about that, is that oftentimes, it doesn't mean that because you're a stay-at-home mom that you're going to do that for the rest of your life, or even for until your children are out of the home. There are many stay-at-home moms who do that during the young formative years, and once the children are school-aged, then they go back to work, or maybe even older once they're teenagers. So, there's a lot of freedoms. There may be economic factors that are in place, but from a psychological point of view and an emotional point of view, I tend to feel like the stresses, if it's not an economic issue, but it's just a personal issue that she may be having, the stresses that society places on women being productive members of society, it tends to add so much pressure to a woman who actually would otherwise be quite comfortable staying home, but because of perhaps her education growing up, or maybe her friends are not supportive of her being a stay-at-home mom. Certainly, TV shows and various aspects of society are constantly pushing women out of the home. That can be a pressure for her if she has not solidified within herself the deep value and meaning of herself as a woman, whether she's working or not. And knowing that her value isn't attached to having a job, or her value isn't attached to not having a job. Her value is in her simply being alive and being a wonderful human being. And so when you're able to separate your value from other external aspects of life, it can really allow you to readjust and your value system and what's really important to you. And then you can begin to build a social structure around you, somewhat like a cocoon, that is much more supportive. Perhaps reaching out to other stay-at-home moms who, are a great support system would be really, really important to you. But I always say, even as I say to my clients, is that there's nothing like getting to the core of who you really are, what you really value, outside of all external conditions that are placed upon you. If you had nothing else to consider and no one else's opinions to consider, and no cultural ties to hold on to, who are you and what's really important to you? If you're still able to say without a shadow of a doubt that no matter what, you'd prefer to be out there doing something other than being a mother at home, then, there's not much we can do about that. I mean, go for it. Go forth and be happy. But if there is a part of you that's being pushed and pulled, and you're hearing people talking about you or talking about how you're not being productive, as if raising full, complete, emotionally well human beings is not a productive activity, then that's really something that you got to really be ready for, prepared for, and do some inner searching. Because to me, there's nothing more important than doing the best you possibly can, and giving as much as you can to raising well-rounded, emotional adults who don't grow up feeling like they're missing something, or who encountered an exorbitant amount of negative experiences because they were constantly out in a world that doesn't support positivity and well-being. And so that's something that it was mentioned in the article. And then there was also the emotional concern. So another thing that kind of was a concern for me, even in reading it, is that it mentioned that another con of being a stay-at-home mom is the emotional aspects, that stay-at-home moms mentioned experiencing higher levels of anger and sadness and stress. And that was really curious for me, because even in my own, field, my own coaching, in my field of passion, so to speak, I often work with the emotional state of women, just in terms of, their ability to create the life of their dreams around their values and the things that are most important for them, and having the courage to live out loud and go after their dreams. And in doing so, one of the most critical, fundamental aspects of our coaching is that no matter what you're doing in life, whether you are married or single, whether you are engaged or divorced, whether you are a parent or not, whether you work outside the home or work from home, whether you're a business owner or you're an employee, no matter what, we are all responsible for our personal well-being. When we are in a state where we are 100% consumed by reacting to the world outside of us without knowing how to replenish the world inside of us, and being able to focus on, even if we can't change the things outside of us, we can certainly change the way in which we react to the world. And we can also be proactive. I mean, that's not to say that you're going to have every day skipping through, the sunflowers and sunshine, and there will be rainy days. There will be days that are more challenging. Perhaps your children are going through something, and it is an emotional pull on you when you are raising other human beings. They are full human beings with their own spectrum. And so your ability to create a sense of wellness and a centeredness within yourself is absolutely critical, no matter what lifestyle you have, whether you're man or woman. And so when I thought about, my reaction to the article when it said that women who stay at home have greater incidences of stress and anger, I really thought about that, and I realized that it's not necessarily the factor of staying at home, that it could be something that would happen to them eventually, whether they were in the home or not, if they are allowing situations to get the better of them at all times, if they are allowing themselves to run on fumes to get all the way to zero, if they're not being poured into, if they don't have a lifestyle of self-care and self-love and rituals that really just build yourself up, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, and literally that just spikes your energy level and fills your cup. And so it is absolutely critical for anybody, but even more so for a person who's staying at home, who may not have as many interactions with other people, but being able to build your life around self-care and self-love so that you can pour from a full cup instead of attempting to raise children and pour from an empty cup. And so it did sadden me, not deeply. I have practiced the art of not staying in a mood for long and having my go-to tools to elevate my energy, to boost my outlook, and to not allow myself to get to a space where I am completely angered and stressed out and depressed in my home. That would defeat the whole purpose of me staying home in the first place. And so I encourage all women who are thinking about, being a stay-at-home wife and mom to, in conjunction with that, make sure you are building into your life self-care rituals, things that you love, a support system around you, not of every single person you knew growing up in college, previous work employees who don't support you staying at home. You've got to make some decisions and some very clear decisions in your life about who you're going to keep in your life and who you are not, because you've got to have a supportive base. You should not be arguing with people every time you have a conversation with them and you just need a release for maybe hours with the kids or whatever else. And the first thing you've got to do is defend yourself against people who don't understand your lifestyle. It's okay if they don't understand it, but it's not okay if they are trying to burden you with their concept of the way you should be living only to make themselves feel better. Because that's really all it's about. It's like, you do what I want you to do so that when I look at you, I don't feel a certain way. And so I need you to stop doing what you're doing so that I can be comfortable. And that's typically what that comes from in terms of people's judgments on you. So make sure that you come prepared. Make sure you come with your tool bag of wonderful things that keep you motivated, that keep you energized, books that you love to read, that you just can't wait to get to at the end of the day. I listen to podcasts. I listen to great inspirational videos while I'm driving around, while I'm washing dishes. I keep my earbuds in my ear. I do that in the morning while I'm putting myself together. I dress up every day, whether I'm, just going to be in the home or not. I always make myself feel good. I don't let myself go. I want to walk past a mirror and be like, oh, girl, yes, I want to feel good. And I want to look good for my husband. I want to present that image to my children, that just because I'm home doesn't mean I let myself go. I'm exercising. I've been losing weight. I've been getting stronger. And I just have a lot of goals that I keep up with, and I challenge friends and we challenge each other, accountability partners, on and on. I have a full life and I enjoy it to the fullest, but I put things in place to ensure that I enjoy it to the fullest. So, if you're ever interested in coaching, because I have mentioned it quite a bit in my videos, that I have just revamped my website. And so it is Leah Love Online, all one word.com. And if you go to leahloveonline.com/playground, then you will see a list of my various coaching sessions. I help women write a fantastically exquisite dating bio. I help them choose photos to ensure that they are presenting the image that they want. I have a beautiful mind coaching, which I utilize to allow women to really develop a mastery with focus, how to set goals and how to eliminate your obstacles and really understand the position from which you roll, so to speak, in life. And so that's an intensive 2-session coaching. I have an online dating mastery group. That's a Facebook group. And that really is like a series of, I think, 7 master classes plus 2 live classes plus about 7 bonus classes plus a free ebook. And that really gets you in the position of being able to really master the mindset of dating, because you can waste a lot of time and energy in the wild, wild west of online dating apps. I met my husband in an online app actually 3 days after I joined that one, and I had been in online apps for about 2 years prior to going through the trauma and dramas of just trying to make it through the jungle of online dating, because I hadn't done that prior to 2 years ago. I had been in 2 10-year relationships, so I came out super green. And I didn't know what was going on, and it was an absolute mess, a nightmare. But I developed my own personal scientific approach to dating, what works, what doesn't. Questioned a lot of people, questioned a lot of men just platonically in terms of their experience with women, their bios, with the way in which women interact with them, what they liked, what they didn't like. And I was able to perfect it to the point that when I finally perfected my techniques, the photos, how to properly write a bio, I wrote probably about 20 bios, adjusted them and based on reactions to my photos and to the bios and the questions I was being asked, and really got myself into a space where it was like, once I got it, I met him on the 3rd day that I was on the app. I met him in person, and we were in 2 different states within 5 days, and we were still living in 2 different states, but we were engaged within 5 months, married 4 months after that. And the rest is history. So, there becomes a time when you really know yourself, just as he really knew himself. He'd healed, really got himself into a good space. He knew exactly what he wanted. I knew exactly what I wanted. It does not take 5 years of being engaged in order to get to know someone. We were extremely intense in the courtship phase. While he was courting me, I vetted intensely. He vetted me intensely. Got the family involved, got their opinion. So it was a really beautiful process. And so I want to share that with women who have the goal of getting married and marrying well. And so I'm here for you, and I'm here for it, y'all. I love it. So definitely reach out to me on my website or comment below. If you're a new stay-at-home mom, what are some challenges you've had? What are some great experiences you've had? If you are interested in being a stay-at-home mom but have tons of questions or apprehensions, let's talk about it below. I mean, that's what we're here for. It's social media, you guys. So, and lastly but not least, oh my gosh, I have recently started a new podcast with a dear friend of mine, Connie Lauren Walker, and I am so excited because she has a wonderful program. In fact, I was in her program for some time in terms of her coaching and her self-care and marriage coaching, which was just fantastic. And that was the Laws of the Enchantress program, and we became very close throughout that process. In fact, she was my maid of honor in my wedding, and it was just wonderful. So she and I have collaborated to create a podcast, and we are also on Spotify. We're on several different platforms, but it's called TWO Ladies Chat. And so it's just about 2 ladies who are pro-marriage, pro-traditionalism. We are discussing a Disneyland of topics, whether it be fitness and health, law of attraction, courtship, vetting, dating, marriage tips, engagements, family, stay-at-home moms, values, traditions. And so it's just a plethora, and we are having so much fun, and we've had such great feedback. So I will put that link below. Also, if you are interested in tuning into our podcast, it's fun, you guys. It's really, really fun. When two of us get together, it's a story in and of itself. So we're having a great time. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, this is Leah Love. Love for you to subscribe, stay around, click the notification, and I got so much more to share with you all in the midst of everything else that I'm doing. So definitely stay tuned, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.